So piracy is coming back. I think the reason why this is happening is the old quote from Gavin. Piracy is a service problem. The reason why piracy went down is because there were services like Netflix, for example, that acted as a market replacement for piracy, and the amount of money that you had to spend was minimal enough to where you could get the value out of it, and instead of spending the extra time and the potential risk with piracy, you could just simply access the shows easily. I think Spotify is the best example that a lot of us use now. How many of you guys had LimeWire and now you have Spotify? I know I did. So Spotify is an example of this happening and working in an effective way. But the problem is that with TV shows and movies, there are too many mouths to feed, and now people are going back to piracy. That's what my opinion is. I'll watch the video and see what they say.
The 2010s were the golden age of piracy.
Oh, yeah.
BitTorrent accounted for 1/3 of all internet traffic.
Wow.
LimeWire had more monthly users than Facebook, and the Pirate Bay was the only video store in town where you were sure to find what you were looking for.
You get that 1080p release a day before it comes out on theaters.
Hypothetically, of course. The world was slowly switching from physical to digital media, and even people who weren't particularly tech-savvy realized that digital goods could be replaced endlessly with practically zero marginal cost. At its peak, 95% of all music downloads were pirated because it had become cheaper and, above all else, an easier way to fill up large digital libraries that were being made possible by cheap digital storage. But then, it just stopped. Since 2012, the internet has gotten faster, storage has gotten cheaper, and people have become more comfortable with computers, which should have just accelerated a growth trend. But it didn't. Since 2015, peer-to-peer file sharing has collapsed in popularity, and you might think you already know why. Streaming services like Spotify and Netflix were just a better, easier, and safer way to access content.
That's one reason.
And now, as these services have become markedly worse and simultaneously more expensive, piracy is making a comeback. It seems
that's the reason.
Pretty simple, right? The only problem is that's not the whole story.
Good.
Realistically, these companies knew this day would come. It was just really important that they could pretend
it's too hard for normies. Yeah, I think that also them like shutting down and then re-hosting Pirate Bay over and over hurt piracy a lot because, and also LimeWire, it's kind of like if you cut off the head of the snake, you're going to remove a lot of people's access to piracy. Because like there are these websites that everybody would use and everybody would know, and just by the nature of how torrenting websites work and seeding and like all of that, the more people use a site, the better the site is. So whenever you cut off a few of the heads and then people went to a bunch of different sites, I think that made piracy less accessible for the lowest common denominator of internet user. I think that was another effect that it had.
For a lot of people, they've decided it's time to cut back.
But legitimately, it might be time to cancel some subscriptions, and I'm probably going to have to cancel some.
Some of them I'm not using, and it's just wasting money.
There's so many of these, it's hard to keep track.
You don't even know.
At that point, that's an adversarial relationship. I don't want to pay people to enter adversarial relationships.
We aim, as I said, for this business to be a growth business for the company with margins that our shareholders will feel good about.
So
well, that didn't happen.
Really made piracy go away, and what's really bringing it back might sound simple, but there's actually a bit more going on. First and foremost, the majority of people actually would like to acquire their media legally as long as it was easy and not ridiculously expensive.
People want to have the media legally because it makes it easier to transfer and to use. And also there's risks with piracy. Like, for example, you download something and it could have a virus in it or something like that. Or obviously you could get caught, but like realistically, it's probably a virus. So, and again, these are 1% probabilities, but like if you had a bag of M&Ms and one M&M was poison, would you want to eat a bag of M&Ms? No, you wouldn't, right? You'd want to have another bag, even if the other bag was like way, way more expensive.
Reasonable people understand that it costs time and money to produce a song, film a movie, or develop a video game. And the people involved in these projects do need to be compensated, or else they are just not going to make them. Even people who frequent the high seas, so to speak, know this better than anybody else. A survey coming out of Australia at the peak of online piracy found that people who pirated content were actually more likely to pay for it if it was available. In a finding that really ages the study, online pirates—
Interest in content would imply interest in content. If people are willing to steal something, they're also probably part of the target audience automatically. because they wouldn't be stealing it if they weren't part of the audience. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like common sense, but like stating it kind of helps put things into perspective.
Were far more likely to pay for movies and music through iTunes or Quick Fix. This was because people who pirated content were just more likely to consume content overall, and most of them would only make the trip to the Bay if they couldn't find what they were looking for more legitimately. So there were two things that changed after 2013. Sure, there were a few high-profile crackdowns on some of these sites, but even the regulators themselves knew they were just playing a game of whack-a-mole. One of the most downloaded files on the Pirate Bay was the Pirate Bay, a complete copy of the site with all of the addresses that could be set up by basically anybody with some basic server hardware in the event that the authorities took down the original site. But then came along the streaming sites that, thanks to faster internet speeds, could let users watch content on demand without granting them direct access to digital files which could then be copied and shared illegally. The big thing.
And the fact is that like Netflix is a better service than using Pirate Bay. It is. It's a better service. You get a higher quality product on average. There's no watermarks. There's a lot of, like, it's a better service. It's the same as Spotify. Spotify is a better service than Pirate Bay was. I don't know. Like, I mean, so you like, you're right in terms of the breadth of content, but I don't think that you're right in terms of the quality of the individual content.
Was that these options were just so easy compared to piracy, and so cheap compared to buying songs or movies one by one that it just didn't really make sense to bother with anything else. Nowadays, that's clearly changed. There are dozens of streaming services that are each getting more and more expensive every year. The movies and shows that you watch are being
crazy. This is insane. This is like we've gone full circle, and now we're all the way back to cable. Quality is worse? Well, again, like, so quality, you're thinking about quality in terms of video quality. I'm thinking about quality in terms of aggregation. I'm thinking about quality in terms of being able to give recommendations. I'm thinking about quality in terms of usability, quality in terms of finding files, all of these things. And again, guys, I understand a lot of everybody, almost everybody in here, like, we're all internet Andes, right? Like, we're on the internet all the time. We're talking on the internet constantly, doing stuff constantly. I think that you really downplay the value that an average person gets out of having a self-contained system. You really, really downplay it. And I think Apple, you know, Steve Jobs understood that. That's why he was such a great visionary. And that's why the iPod was so successful and it blew everything else out of the water. Its usability is something that is actually a massive accessibility issue, and it cuts out so many people that you just never even see. It's about convenience,
Split up over different providers, the services themselves are getting worse by introducing ads and pushing less relevant content. And on top of all of that, it's just not that easy anymore. Even individual TV shows have certain seasons split up over different streaming services, and the first step in sitting down—
what? The same show is on multiple streaming services with different seasons? Is this true? Oh my God.
To watch a movie these days is to
what a
Google
scam.
what
That's
streaming
insane.
service
I've
has
never
the
heard of that.
1984 release of Gremlins, and if you're unlucky, what streaming service plus what VPN combo will get you the movie you want to watch. If you're already going through all that effort, it gets really—
Start this show! Flaming premonition!